I take the bus from Sidon to Beirut, and just few kilometers north of, like 6 kilometers north of Ain al-Hilwi, I hear music and dancing and people on the beach, like it's a different world. They saw the planes bombing, nobody concerned. Just you turn on the radio, the official radio of Lebanon in those days, nothing happened. The bombing taking place, it's all right, it's Palestinians, they don't care.
For most people, there seemed no reason to care. South Lebanon, with its Israeli raids, was like another country, and Beirut was prospering. It was a noisy, flashy city with traffic and shouting and commotion of every kind. It was destroying what was best in itself to make way for the new Arab oil wealth, for the commercial values that put a price on everything. The Beirut the tourists saw repelled me. Its tawdry nightclubs, the bars, the casinos, the Beirut in which everything and nearly everyone seemed to be for sale. But there was an older Lebanon up in the mountains, the Lebanon my great-grandparents fled at the end of the last century. Traditionally a place of refuge for minorities, Mount Lebanon was called the real Lebanon, of villagers and peasants, of feudal lords, of village sheikhs and priests. Nearly everything I knew about Lebanon before I went there came from my grandmother, who left when she was a child. She came from a Maronite Catholic village in the north, Zarta. It had a long tradition of resistance to Muslim rule, centered on the church. Its people were reputed to be the toughest, most stubborn, and perhaps most feudal in all of Lebanon, certainly of all the Christians. In mountain Lebanon, your loyalty has always been to your family, your village, the leader of your community, your church. Community leaders kept government weak to make themselves strong. In times of trouble, people rallied to their tribe and not to any notion of country. In battles of tribe against tribe, faith against faith, village against village, the world becomes smaller. For these children, my young cousins, there is no question of traveling to other parts of Lebanon where as Christians they might not be safe. Before the war, their parents could go anywhere. In Zarta and its summer village of Ehden, I always felt safe. The first time I went there, nearly the whole village came out to see the American. Different cousins vied to have me to stay. The children wanted me to sleep in their rooms, see their secret places by the river, and tell them about far-off America. When I sat at the family table for meals, women there show their affection through their cooking. I was part of the family, part of the life of the village. Old Lebanon could not cope with a modern age, with powerful, avaricious neighbors, Israel and Syria, who exploited its many divisions. Zarta was the real Lebanon, the Lebanon of feuds where most women dressed in widow's black, a land of sudden, violent confrontation, the Lebanon my grandmother had left behind, but which she always carried with her in spirit. Slowly, the beautiful, easy life of Lebanon's mountains and seashore changed. I was out of the country for a few weeks in 1975 when the Civil War officially began. The division of the country hit me after I landed at Beirut Airport. A Muslim taxi driver took me halfway into town. Then he turned me over to a Christian colleague who took me the rest of the way home. This was because Muslims suddenly felt safe only in their own neighborhoods, Christians in theirs. I didn't realize how serious the fighting would become, and so many of us, foreigners as well as Lebanese, would have to leave the country. So many more would become casualties, dead or crippled for life. And at funerals throughout the country, mothers and fathers would bury their children. And children who had seen their parents butchered before their eyes suddenly found themselves lost and alone in orphans' homes. Words like refugee, like exile, like dead and wounded took on new, real meanings for all of us. For what?
No face.
No face. No face.
We grew used to the battles. Most people were left with two hopes only: to stay alive and to preserve their humanity as the streets became the property of young gunmen. Both sides believed they fought for a cause, no matter how many innocents they killed, no matter how many people they terrorized, until even they stopped believing in anything but staying alive and killing. The old Lebanon survived in many islands of hospitality. One of my places of refuge was the house of my friend Muna Bustros and her family. I loved to sit in their garden in the evening, smelling the jasmine, trading rumors, and drinking Lebanese wine. It didn't matter whether they were Christian or Muslim, they were Lebanese, and like most Lebanese, they did their best to keep the war outside their doors.
Then one day, they decided, the militiamen here decided to put a cannon in the garden. So my mother came out and said, listen, you can't put a cannon in the garden. They said, this is our orders. Then she said, listen, come and have a glass of water or something like that. And while discussing, he realized that she came from the same village he came from in the south. Okay, we won't put the cannon in your garden. And they left, and we didn't have a cannon in the garden. And we were spared for a year or two.
On both sides, the warriors said they were saving Lebanon, but together they were destroying it. My colleague David Hurst of The Guardian called it the trivialization of death. When death took so many forms, people learned new ways of staying alive. They hurried down pavements, hugging close to the walls to avoid snipers. They learned when to stay off the streets and hide in their basements or corridors to survive artillery shelling. But there were always new lessons to be learned, new ways to be killed.